Hello, and welcome to Archive Dive. I'm Maria Lockwood, a reporter with the Superior Telegram. Each month, we dip into files on historic events, people, and places in Superior and Douglas County with local historians. Do you remember Superior's dime stores? If so, this one's for you. We're talking Newberry's, Woolworth's, and Kresge's, all of which could be found on Tower Avenue. What did they carry? How did they grow? And what happened to them? Let's find out. Helping us today is Teddy Meronek. Hi, Teddy.
Hi, Maria.
So, for the younger viewers out there, can you tell me what a dime store is?
Oh, a dime store, it was just like magic when you were young because they had everything. And if you had $1, you could get a lot of stuff because most of it was, well, not when I was young, was it still 5 and 10 cents as they advertised when they first opened up, but a lot of 29-cent stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They had everything. They had everything from household goods to parakeets. Parakeets. And you could eat at their lunch counters.
Wow.
You could buy candy.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a wonderful place to be.
Okay. So they were like department stores, but everything was 10 cents or 5 cents when they opened.
When they opened, yes. That's how they advertised themselves, as the 10-cent stores.
Right. So that would set them apart from like Roth's or some of the other department stores.
Yeah.
Okay. So which one was the first to show up in Superior?
The first one to show up in Superior was, I believe, Newberry's, was it Newberry's or was it Kresge's? They all sort of morphed at the same, it's like nowadays where, somebody starts a trend and, everybody's just following them. And so they started to pop up in the early 1900s.
Okay.
At first, Kresge's was just called the 5 and 10 cent store, and it wasn't in its final location. But I honestly think that Woolworth's was the first one that came to Superior, and that was on 12th and Tower.
Okay.
That was the early 1900s, and they had a store there. And then Newberry's, which was on 11th and Tower, right on the corner.
Away.
Yeah. And they were one block after another, 11th, 12th, and 13th. Kresge's was at 13th and Tower.
Okay.
But both Newberry's and Kresge's were both in old buildings. They had already been standing, and especially Kresge's was down at what was the Wymus building, but had turned into a furniture store.
Mm-hmm.
It was the May Company, and I think Grand Rapids at one time owned it. Big building, multiple floors, beautiful building. In fact, it was on the National Register of Historic Places before it was torn down. The dental clinic is there now.
Okay.
So that was the oldest building. And then there was Newberry's, which they moved there, I think, in 1928 from their first location on 10th and Tower. They went to 11th. And that was an old building also. And Woolworth's was between the two of them. And they came in first, I think, in 1902. And they were in an old building. But in 1928, they decided to build a new building. They tore down the existing store.
Mm-hmm.
They moved everything across the street to the Empire Block, which at one time was home to Pease Hardware.
Okay, so they just pushed Pease Hardware out and said, we're here
I
now?
think they had left by then, but then they occupied the space, and by June, they had a brand new store. So they were the only dime store that was actually built for a dime store for them.
And that building is still standing,
That
right?
is, that's VIP.
Okay, so that used to be Woolworth.
Yeah, and they finished it just in time because I think when it was finished, probably a week later, Calvin and Grace Coolidge showed up in Superior, Wisconsin.
And
they had a brand new Woolworth store. So the other stores, and I always remember, when I was young going there and always thinking this is a really nice store compared to the older, when you're a kid, you're so shallow, like, oh, this is old. But it was such a treat to go downtown. I remember going like grocery shopping with my mom and dad. And while my dad was, getting the groceries organized in the car, my mom and I would go down to the dime stores, and sometimes we'd have lunch. They all had lunch counters.
Okay. Not originally, right? They put them in later?
No, I think they had them originally. Especially, I remember reading about, I think it was Newberry's. They used to have this special, I can't remember what the name of it was, but you could get 2 slices of Lehman's bread. They were a local bread producer in Superior. And your choice of filling and lettuce and mayonnaise in a pickle for 10 cents. That was at Newberry's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a good lunch.
Yeah. And then Woolworth's remodeled again in, I think, the 50s. and everything was streamlined. That was the big word that was used during that era. Everything was streamlined after World War II, everything. So they had a streamlined lunch counter where you could get like a quarter pounder, a hamburger, and I don't know if it was for $1 and French fries or whatever, but they always, in my opinion, had some of the best food.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
What set the three apart from each other?
Well, I think Woolworths was at an advantage because it was newer and they had done, a big remodel when they did remodel, and they had put in air conditioning.
Oh.
Which was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other stores, at least one of them put in air conditioning. I remember reading about that, but that was a big deal. But Woolworths was newer and it was brighter, and the other ones were in old stores, so they, didn't have the windows and everything that Woolworths did. I think they added on like a 40 or 50-foot annex to the back of the building too, probably for more storage and that. But the thing that made dime stores different from like if you would go to a department store is that all their merchandise was displayed on counters. And in department stores at that time, everything would be behind the counter and somebody would have to take it out and show it to you. Where you could just look in the early days in the dime stores, there were people who worked behind every counter. Like if you had a toy counter or, home goods counter, they'd have to have people who worked there. They didn't have a centralized checkout at the time when they first opened. And that became a big thing later on, like in the 40s. So you cut down on employees in one way, but then they had like centralized checkout. So you go through the store and pick out your stuff and then just check out all at once. But I have a friend from high school, a very good friend and she and another one of my very good friends worked at Newberry's when they were in high school.
Oh, you had friends working there.
I worked at there, and she wrote for me one time a history or her remembrances of working at Newberry's. Mm-hmm. And I just pulled it out again and read it. And we worked on the newspaper together in the yearbook, so we were all into writing, but it was just lovely, the things she had written.
What were her memories like? What did she remember?
I think they worked like all the departments, but I remember her working at the lunch counter, and she said the lady who ran it was just a wonderful person. And every morning she came in and made like egg salad fresh and tuna, for sandwiches and that. And then she talked about they had a fabric department, and she said in Newberry's they carried everything from velvet to burlap. They had everything. But my favorite story is about the little turtles.
Turtles?
They used to sell little tiny turtles. You're probably too young to remember them, but you could buy them. Why does 29 cents stick with me for how much they cost? And they would sell them at the dime stores, and you could take them home as a pet. But I think they carried some sort of, there was some risk of having them. I don't know what it was, bacteria, whatever. They finally discontinued selling them. But she's
come with a box.
Well, they were little tiny, tiny things. It was just, you get this little tiny turtle. But anyway, one day apparently somebody left the top off the cage that they were in, and they all escaped.
All these tiny turtles throughout the store.
And they didn't know it until the next morning, and they came to work and they had to round them up, but they didn't get all of them.
Oh.
But, like months later, they'd find them.
Oh, no.
In the cracks and crevices of the old building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But she just had wonderful memories of working there. Like the people were so nice, and it's always interesting.
I can't imagine that they're selling like pets on one table and food on another, and that just doesn't seem...
Yeah, they used to sell parakeets.
Okay.
And they used to sell fish.
All right.
Because when Woolworths remodeled, that was something that they included in their remodeling, was a pet department.
Okay.
And they sold just about everything else too. They had like small furniture and...
Really? Okay.
Of course, they had the fabric, and they had some clothing, and they had a shoe department and window shades and all of that stuff. Sort of like a department store in a way, but not quite, not as big and lavish as a department store would be.
Okay.
But they had everything. And if you had a dime in your pocket, you could buy it.
Awesome. Did you go to any in particular? Was there one that was your favorite?
Woolworths was by far.
Why?
The lunch counter.
What did you get when you went to lunch there?
They used to have those rotisseries where the hot dogs were on. I was always fascinated by that. And they also had really good ice cream. And the best time to, be downtown in Superior was during ridiculous days in the summer, where all the merchants would put their merchandise outside, and it would be like a sidewalk days. And sometimes I think I even remember they would have like carnival rides.
In downtown,
just a little, little ones. And there was always something going on. Yeah, they would run for 2 or 3 days. And that was always fun because I'd just walk up and down and see everybody. And Tower Avenue people don't remember that because, it was our only shopping area. People didn't go to Duluth.
Okay.
Because, my dad didn't go to Duluth because you had to pay and go across the bridge.
Back then there was a toll.
Was against his principles.
Bridge, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could find anything you want in Superior, which you could. But you could see, and if you go through the newspapers, you can see the gradual change as to what happens once the Blotnick Bridge is completed. Because on the other side of the Blotnick Bridge is gold finds.
Right, which is now Goodwill's.
Yeah, right. And in those days, that was a bigger and better version of dime stores.
Oh.
This is how this all, when you really look at this, you can see how it all segued into the next generation of what was going to be there, the big box stores and all that, and the downtowns would disappear.
Right.
Once I had a discussion with Bob Armour, who had written a couple books about early days in Superior, and I said to him, I really truly believed that the Blotnick Bridge was, the start of Superior sliding back.
Okay. Did it sound the death knell for the dime stores, or was that
Yes, yeah. Kresge's morphed into Kmart. The Kresge family that owned the dime stores, that morphed into Kmart.
Oh, okay. So
they're the direct descendant of the dime stores Kmart was.
Okay.
By the 90s, I think Woolworth's closed in the 90s, and the other stores probably in the 80s, late 80s, but by then they were down. Their heydays were the early days, probably the 60s, the early 60s were the last of the big boom for dime stores around the country.
Would you say, is it fair to equate like the dollar stores that have started to come with similar to the dime stores?
Oh, definitely. I think so. They have everything, and the dime stores had everything.
Right.
We had a dime store in East End.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay, that wasn't on Tower.
No, and that was...
What kind did you have?
I guess it was a Ben Franklin. It was McLean's dime store. And honest to God, you could go in there and buy anything you needed. They had yarn, they had school supplies, they had toys, they had cards, they had everything. Wow. And we would always stop after school and get a little bag of cheese potato chips.
How much would it cost for a bag of cheese potato
Probably
chips?
5 cents or 10 cents, I bet. They didn't have a lunch counter or anything, but they sold everything too. Contact paper for your drawers and, the kitchen and stuff. Yeah, everything.
Did they sell appliances at all? Or?
No, not that I remember.
It had to be the lesser expensive.
Yeah, well, that too, and it was a small store. It was not anywhere near the size of the downtown dime stores.
Where was it located?
Right on 5th Street. The building's still there. Across the street from the hardware store.
Okay.
Right next to what was the old bank building. Yeah, it's still there.
Okay. But how long did that one last?
Oh, it probably went into the 70s at least, I think. Yeah, you missed when that left.
Did malls make a difference?
Yeah.
When the dime stores?
Well, the malls made a difference in sort of killing the downtowns everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And
it seems like now there's a transition back to the downtown.
Right, yeah. Now I get more of the flavor of what I remember downtown Superior, like when I was young. There was the House of Charm, the beauty, the beauty salon was downtown, yes, and JCPenney's was down there, and of course Roth's,
right,
which moved to that site in 1926 to that store.
Did Roth's outlive the dime stores, or did they outlive Roth's?
Oh, they probably went about the same era.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were the dime stores part of, I know Thursday nights used to be like shop downtown Tower nights. Did they take part in it too?
Yes. Yeah. It was such a different place, 2 movie theaters. When I was growing up, there were 2 movie theaters. There were more when, earlier on, but in the era of television, there were 2 movie theaters and Gennard's Candy Store and, men's shop, Siegel's. There was everything you could want. And my dad was right. You can get it whatever you want in Superior, but still, I wanted to go to Glass Block in Duluth.
Really? Okay.
But yeah, Maurice's.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a lot of time there. Oryx, there was so many things. But if you needed the necessities, like if you needed a tablet for school, you would go to the dime stores, pencils or anything like that. They were always there. And with 3 of them, you could always find what you wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there was the one in East End. Were there any others that were off of the beaten track tower?
I don't know. I remember Cohen's in South Superior, but I think that was more clothing and shoes. I don't know. In Billings Park.
Out in Eloise and Itasca.
No, Eloise didn't have any dime stores. They had a drugstore and bars and a bowling alley.
Oh, right. There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and did the East End, Ben Franklin, did that sell turtles?
Not that I remember, but they may have.
Those tiny turtles.
Yeah, you got to look those up, Maria.
It sounds like quite a story.
But I don't remember them. They had a group of women who worked there who were it was almost like it was they were taking care of their home. Everything was always immaculate and in place. And they were so nice. But it was mostly women who worked at those stores. I think, who was it that employed 45 women when they opened up? I think it was Kresge's.
Oh, wow.
It was all women who worked the counters and that. And usually the manager was a man.
Okay.
But most of the employees were women.
Fun. And you were able to go to each counter and just buy something right from that.
You could at one time, yeah.
Central.
I always remember, in my day, I remember them having central checkouts.
Okay.
But in the beginning, that's what you did. You paid for it at that counter. So that's why they had so many employees, because, somebody had to be there all the time to man the cash registers.
Right.
Yeah.
Did they have a cool elevator like Roth?
Nobody had a second floor.
Really? They were all one-story buildings?
They were all just one. Well, they were in bigger buildings. Well,
but they were just on the bottom floor.
Kresge's was in, I think that was it 3 or 4 stories? But there were apartments and things upstairs.
Oh, okay.
But they only occupied the bottom floor. The Woolworth store looked like it was 2 floors from the facade on the front, but it wasn't. It was just 1 floor.
Okay.
And so was Newberry's. It was just 1 floor. Yeah. I don't think any of them had basements either. I think the Woolworths in Duluth had a basement. If I remember that correctly.
Right.
Yeah. To read about the families who own these businesses is quite interesting.
Were any of them local?
No. The people who start them are a lot different than the people who inherit them.
Right.
Yeah. Money. Yeah. They made a lot of money. They made a lot of families really, really rich. So I guess if you're not the generation that earned it, you're the generation that spends it.
Right.
And they did.
So did they have local managers? And they were just bigger, but they were bigger national companies that came in. Kresge's.
Yeah, I think Newberry's or Kresge's was like the 200th store. Must have been Kresge's.
Okay.
It was like the 200th store that they opened.
All right. So that's another thing that sets the dime stores apart from something like Roth's.
Right. Yeah. They weren't locally owned.
Okay.
Yeah. They were part of a conglomerate, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So you had a Woolworths all over,
Right.
In New York City and in Superior, Wisconsin, you had a Woolworths. Everybody went to Woolworths.
But they were fun.
They were fun, and you could always get a good meal there and excellent ice cream at all of them. I'm sure they all got it from Russell Creamery in Superior, too. Probably. I would think our Bridgman's. I don't know which one, but probably Russell Creamery. Yeah, it's always good.
Awesome. So good memories.
Excellent memories, Thursday nights in downtown Superior.
Mm-hmm. Checking out the
boys.
I was going to say the dime store, but yeah, the boys. Let's go there.
Or you could go to a movie. Yeah. I'm really sorry that they tore down the Beacon Theater, because that was my favorite.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully something happens at the Princess Theater. And
I hope so. That would be nice.
Right. We haven't had a movie theater in Superior in quite some time.
I know.
Since the Mariner Fort shut down.
I know. And like if you go down to the one in Canal Park, oh, wow.
Times have changed.
The traffic is unbelievable.
Yes. So it'd be nice to have something back
It would
town.
be nice, yeah. But I'm sure it's not easy, in this day and age.
No, but it's interesting to look back and think of what we had and maybe what we could have
recreate it in a different way.
Right.
Yeah. But just have the flavor of a downtown. And I think Superior's doing a really good job now.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
I'm happy.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that walk down memory lane.
You're welcome.
And thank you for listening to Archive Dive. New episodes are available monthly at superiortelegram.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have a topic you'd like us to explore, email me at mlockwood@superiortelegram.com.